Welcome back to the Mil2Vet Podcast. This is episode 99, and today we are joined by Nick White, a Navy veteran with an incredible story. Nick shares his journey through the Navy, some hilarious and inspirational sea stories, and how gaming has become a positive outlet in his life. He also opens up about his experience with mental health and navigating the med board process before retiring medically in 2022. And don't forget, next week is episode 100, the last episode before we do our big season finale, and we talk about the top 10 most viewed episodes of season 1. But for now, let's dig into Nick's story. Welcome, Nick.
I just had a conversation with a lot of people yesterday about how the VFW, how complicated it is to be able to get them into the new and the newer generation, especially with the gaming and things like that, right?
They're struggling a lot with that. Go ahead.
I actually have an appointment with the Legion and the VFW here, and we're going to be talking about what it is that veterans nowadays actually want. And the day of the old of going to the bar, what we do not want. We don't want to go to the bar. We spent a lot of our time in the bar while we were active duty.
Exactly.
And we know, we're a lot more educated than the past. Unfortunately for the past, they weren't as educated as we are.
Yeah.
On that aspect of
I would
drinking.
say,
we're way more woken
Hold on.
up to that aspect of what alcohol does to us.
but that's generalizing. So I'll be the devil's advocate on that. I'd say we have a different perspective. From a societal point of view, we have a different perspective of how to interact with people.
Yeah.
Before, the only outlet that you had was to go to a club, to a facility. Now we know that you don't have to leave your home in order to interact with a community. Whereas before, that was a societal norm.
That was
And
the thing.
yeah.
And we also grew up. I mean, Nick, I'm going to assume you're a millennial.
Yeah.
Yogi, you're right on the cusp of, right?
Sure. I don't even know the numbers or the.
It's like the late 80s, I think, is millennial, the start of millennial. If you're
So
born in the late 80s.
I was born mid 80s. I'm a millennial.
Okay, it's mid 80s.
So it's I want to say it's like it's lower 80s that the millennials start.
Really? Jeez, I thought it was like 86. I guess I'm wrong.
You got all these. I mean, millennials are starting to turn 40 now, and that's the thing. That's the majority of the old timers that are getting out. We have a lot of millennials that are getting out, and we grew up playing video games, and even in the military, man, we would play video games. And what does it say?
So that we're not guessing. Millennials are generally defined as people born between the early 1980s and the mid 1990s. They were a generation between Generation X and Generation Z. So that's the accurate definition. So I guess by that definition, yes, I am a millennial.
Yeah.
Because I was born.
Welcome to the party. So I love it whenever somebody starts dogging on millennials and they'll talk to me because of the beard. They think might be like, I don't know, 45. I'm not in my 40s yet. And they'll be like, oh, the millennials. I'm like, bro, I am a millennial.
I hear that.
Yeah, like, we're not inviting this guy back.
It's like I have like the opposite. My local VFW, I just tried to join them. I just started trying to join the last 2 months, and I am the youngest member by like 15 years. I just now got my membership, and they were hungry to get me because all the guys that ran it before were all in their 70s and 80s. These are like World War II Vietnam vets that are all getting too old to really be running it. And then the guys that are there now, the guy who runs it now, he's a Marine Corps vet. I think he did 30 years Marine Corps officer. I forget how old he is. Puts him in his late 40s, 50s, I know. And they're still trying to get more guys my age in. So that's what brought me to the thing. Yesterday I was on Discord and I saw a thing pop up for VFW Discord group. And I'm like, what? I'm like, VFW is a Discord? I'm like, that's weird. and they had a
That's
thing called
interesting.
Can you send that to me?
yeah, I got you. I'll shoot you that in an email. I'll do it now because I'm gonna forget if I don't. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I'll definitely forget. Yeah, so I joined it and I was like, oh, this seems kind of cool. Like, I'll check it out. And they had a little section to promote yourself, so I copy and pasted my Twitch link in there, and I was like, yeah, hey, come check me out if you want to, like, for other vets and stuff. And I guess what I was streaming was interesting enough, so I'm actually going to be one of their official streamers starting
Nice.
today. I literally got the message like 6 minutes ago that I'm gonna.
Just so you know, I'm your 25th subscriber
Hey, I
on
appreciate it, dude.
Twitch.
Thanks, man. How the hell do you
Mil2Vet does have a Twitch, by the way, Yogi. I'm not sure if you know this. And we have like 6
I don't.
subscribers on there.
Whoop
Oh,
whoop.
Yogi, you don't know half of the things I've set up for Mil2Vet.
Oh God.
See, no, that's pretty cool, man. I was gonna get it set up so that way I could be recording playing Fortnite with my son. Because that's the game he likes to do, and I'd like if I'm going to be playing video games, it's going to be hanging out with him playing video games and having me recorded doing that, And if somebody wanted to talk about it, I would keep it somewhat PG. Be like, hey man, I got my kid in here. He needs to hear some of the stuff. Like, I think it's good for him to hear some of these stories, but keep it PG because he's 10 years. He's not even 10 yet. He turns 10 here shortly.
I got you. Yeah, I just emailed you the link to their Discord.
Dope. All right,
I'm
man.
like getting messages from them right now about setting me up for what I got to do for them and whatnot.
Yeah,
I started doing the streaming thing just really for fun. It was something to do. I like playing video games, and also like I live in the middle of nowhere, so there's not a whole lot of people to talk to or hang out with, and all my friends are still in and live everywhere.
You're not in Oak Harbor, are you?
No, not in Oak Harbor. I was there though back in 2014. I was stationed there. No, I'm in North Carolina.
So to do a little connections, Yogi was in Japan when you were in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yogi is a Japanese warrior. He's been there forever. He's one of those guys that went there and then the Navy had a hell of a time trying to get him out.
Dude, I feel that.
Hold on, backtrack. So I went there in 2007 to 2009.
Hey, I was there in 07.
I went there with the intention of staying there for a little while longer. I loved it. My detailer, we had to call him because we couldn't get a hold of him. So I called him and I was like, hey, it was like 2:00 in the morning in Japan.
Yeah.
The NCC and me came in, we talked to him, and the guy was like, hey, so you haven't had shore duty. You've already been in for 7 years.
God, dude.
We're gonna send you to shore duty. And I was like, bro, let me just stay here. Like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't care. Back to back sea duty. I'm okay with it. He's like, no, these are your choices. You either go to Key West or you go to the needs of the Navy.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's not a choice, man. Like you and I both know that's not a choice.
That's not a choice.
Yeah, that's
you're going to the first ship that's undermanned.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went to Key West because they kicked me out of Japan, right? And then in 15, I was able to go back to Japan. So I came back to Japan in 16, and then I stayed there from 16 till 22.
Nice, dude.
Wow.
Nice. I was only there from 2012 to 2014, but I loved it.
Yeah, I was there from 21 to 23.
Were you guys Yokosuka or down?
No, 22.
Was it 22? Was that when 22. I got there?
Sasebo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was there for a year and a half.
So, So Chris was only in Iwakuni.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in Atsugi, and then in 17, the end of 17, we migrated all the jets down to Iwakuni.
Okay.
And so I was part of that migration, and then we just stayed in Iwakuni.
Nice, dude. I loved Atsugi so much. I spent my weekends at Atsugi most of the time.
Being in Yokosuka, of course.
So Yogi, what was your favorite, Iwakuni or Atsugi?
So total, it's like comparing apples and tomatoes, man.
It's like comparing New York to Texas.
No. So actually, essentially, it's comparing New York to Houston, right?
Yeah, it really is.
They're both two big cities, but and it's so the way I would I've told people, right, is like saying uh Mexico City, New York, and Houston are all on the same playing field because of the same amount of people that they have, right? Or
Yeah.
Tokyo, New York, and Mexico City, and they're not. They're just three completely different things. I loved Tokyo and Atsugi because of all the things that you had access to. But then again, you could just go to Mount Fuji, or Lake Nagano, or just go to the beach and just kind of hang out if you wanted to, right? All
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour of train rides. Whereas it was the same thing in Iwakuni, except it was more of a slower pace. But I wouldn't even say more of a slower pace. There was just more environmentally friendly places.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard it was just more rural in a sense.
It was.
Yeah.
But then I love rivers, right? And there was rivers everywhere in Iwakuni. In Tokyo, there was
Oh
some
yeah.
rivers, but you only see them. You can't get in them. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whereas in Iwakuni, you could. I could be
But
the
what
crazy
was
guy, the crazy American. I could be like, go bye.
dude, what
My
was
wife
really
thinks I'm crazy.
surprising was how clean Tokyo really was.
Oh yeah.
And the waterways were they were clean. Like everything was clean there. And I've never seen so many people in one spot with such a nice tidy area to be around.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, so right now, that's one of the things that they're complaining about, having foreigners and tourists, because all over the places, tourists are trashing Tokyo,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not Tokyo. They're trashing
Japan in
Japan.
general. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
that.
in general. Yeah, so they don't. That's why they're like
Those guys, they'll
asking
shut their
tourists to
borders over
get out. Yep.
less.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, give
So
me a reason to tell everybody to push, push,
kick rocks.
yeah, kick out. Now, the Americans, they're not going to really cut us off.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, they're tied to our hip because we are their defense. I know they have their defense forces, but
it's small.
they heavily rely on us and our presence, and there prevents China from going more aggressive on Japan because man, they still do stupid shit to Japan all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. No, man, would you so what'd you think? What was better? Was ship company better or was VP better?
Oh, dude, VP was leaps and bounds better. Like, dude, I had no comparison when I went on Des to the G Dub.
Yeah, okay.
I came in as an MA and I got to MA school and I was like, this sounds terrible. I don't want to do this. I don't want to check IDs all day. So I dropped on request and they're like, yeah, we'll get you. We'll give you a good rate. You're gonna pick your rate tomorrow. I go in. They're like, all right, you want Undez Seaman or Undez Airman? I was like, bro, what? They're like, yeah, that's your two options. I was like, I guess Undez Airman because I heard horror stories about Undez Seaman from everybody. And they're like, okay, cool. You
Was a
go to the
way
G
better
Dub in
choice.
Japan. Yeah, it was. And then I got sent with the ABEs and V2 and I hated my life.
Oh yeah, V2.
I was like,
That's
is this a better
horrendous, man.
choice? That's just the aviation side of being a BM. It's the same thing, I swear.
Yeah, it's really not that great.
I was like,
That's
this
for
is
sure.
terrible. And they were like,
Yeah.
oh man, strike ABE, do it. And I was like, I'm good. So but I struck AD. I took the test, passed out advanced, got sent AD, and then from there, when you back then, I don't know if it's the way now, but when you were on DES, you were supposed to stay at your first command for 4 years, and then you get to pick to go to any rate school you want. But I struck in and I slipped through the cracks, so my orders were up for 2 years. So I got to pick orders after 2 years. I was one of the few undes guys that do that, and I saw VP, and everyone told me how great it was, and so I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And then left Japan, was home for a month, went to Washington State, and I was back in Japan a month later in Misawa for deployment.
Are you from Washington?
Oh,
No,
No,
I'm from
you're not
Boston.
from. Yeah, you're from. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey,
what?
Boston and Washington, man. Like our areas are really similar to each other.
Yeah,
Like population wise and
yeah,
um almost political wise. No,
yeah.
yeah.
And I haven't lived there since I was a kid. My family left Boston in like around 9, moved to North Carolina, and I was there until I left high school and then joined the Navy, and now I'm back in North Carolina.
Nice.
Is that what you ran away from Whidbey Island?
I wanted to stay in Whidbey. I liked Whidbey. I liked it a lot. I liked the outdoors. And I was into off-roading. I had a truck. I used to do overlanding, like all that stuff. And then, but I was up for shore duty, and there wasn't really any shore duty orders. There was no AIM.
Right.
And I ended up going to VR1, the SecNav Squadron in DC.
Oh, nice.
That was a sweet gig. I didn't know what it really was. I thought I was going to be doing mech stuff, working on Gulfstreams. I'm like, yeah, this would be a great experience, but it's all civilian maintenance. So I worked in safety. I ended up becoming the safety LPO as a second class because the safety department was like 3 people.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually not a bad gig for no, that's a legit gig. And did you get your were you able to get the qualification for that? Because that's a good job.
That's how I got my safety job now, actually. I teach safety classes. I'm an online safety instructor, and I got it because I got the aviation safety specialist NEC. I went to all the schools and did the PQS that's like 300 pages long and all that. And that's how I got the safety job that I have now, is just all that experience. Plus, it was a sweet gig while I was there. I was me, my first class, and I had a divil. I didn't have a chief, so it was great.
I mean, the QAS is the safety.
No, I had to give that to you guys.
Yeah. I worked in QA so my first time working in QA, man, I was at AZ1, and I had the senior chief. His name is Don Nuccio, and he pulled me up into QA. And before he did it, though, he's like, "Hey, Chris," because we were pretty tight. He came over and helped me move into my house and everything. Really, really tight crew where I was at. Very lucky. And he's like, "Hey, Chris, like, do you want to come up to QA and work up here?" And he's like, because he knew I was over production control. I was a controller. I worked in production control forever. You know, that's the curse of the AZ, man.
Dude, that's the only spot you ever go on most.
You're always next to the MMCO, the chiefs. They're always fucking grumpy. We don't get to do everything because they're a bunch of grump asses. Everybody else is getting, the hookup, the supervisors
are the grumpiest, I swear, too.
Yeah. So anyways, long story short, back to QA. I told him, I'm like, I didn't want to go to QA unless I'm a QAR. And that was pretty much me thinking that, like, hey, no way that's ever going to happen. And I ended up in QA as a QAR. I was a 60 alpha corrosion QAR. I got my corrosion qualification.
Nice.
And you're gonna probably spin in your chair here a little bit. But I also was a QAR for torque checks on 414 motors.
That's funny.
So they gave me a 41 Lima and 450. 450.
That kind of makes sense. When I was on the GDub, our AZ1 that we had for the mech shop was like that. In case one of the other QAs was gone, QRs was gone, they had him be torque check.
Yeah, it probably started from like no joke. They literally was like, why have we not done this with AZs before? And
makes sense.
Yeah, I had a third class. That was my CTPL, and I schooled him. Like, I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to neglect that job. I just don't want it anywhere on my title.
That's fair.
That's what I told him. So he made that happen. There's some pretty cool things that happened. That was kind of like the XO came on our show. JJ Cummings. There was just badasses all over that ship. That was one of the
cool.
Yeah,
what ship was this?
That was the USS Nimitz.
Okay.
And that was from 2012 to 2015 timeframe.
Okay.
But yeah, man. Hey, so have you seen any of our episodes before? Have you watched any of that?
I watched part of like 3 of them, and then something happened. I got all of them, and I never could.
Make sure you review.
Yeah, haven't watched one all the way through, but I've seen parts of a couple.
Yeah, that's all right, man. I watch every single one.
Yeah,
I do all the editing.
Oh, I bet you've probably seen every episode 4 or 5 times, having to rewatch and do all the editing and stuff. Yeah, because once I found that, I watched one, and then I think it was like late at night and ended up going to bed, and then another one, and I watched the most recent one today.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
because I wanted to be fresh on the most recent one too, because that way, in case any topics came up from the last one, I knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's smart. Do your research.
But I really enjoy it too. It's cool to see other people's stories, and I'm listening to the Marine. I can't forget his name. The Marine, the last episode.
Yeah,
His
Gail.
story, Gail. Yeah, his story and like what he went through when he got out and like the success he's got. And I'm like, bro, we have like violently different experiences getting out.
You know,
So to be
success is
fair,
all in
though,
the eye of the beholder. Sorry.
True.
Go ahead,
exactly,
Yogi.
because if you talk to him offline, so it just seems like it was nothing but success, right?
Yeah.
Because the end result is right, but at the same time, he had to go through a lot of things in order to make that be the outcome. I don't know if you noticed that whenever he started with Netflix, they told him
Yeah.
straight up, he's like, "Hey, we're only doing this for the skill bridge, but we don't have a job for you. So
Yeah.
once the skill bridge is over, you're over." And he's
Yeah.
like, "All right, cool, whatever." And he was let go, but then they finally called him back and offered him a job. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I thought that was really cool. Like they created a position for him. I was like, that's awesome.
Right,
You know,
right, and
go ahead.
it's uh the one of those things that right place, right time, right? Or
Yeah.
what some people say about what is luck, right? Luck is being prepared for when the right time hits. You're able to execute,
I
right?
like that.
So I want to attribute more of his success to him being ready and prepared than to um, just a stroke of luck. You know what I mean?
Right. I hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what Yogi just said is 100%
Yeah.
like the get.
And I definitely hearing everything he did. He was definitely more prepared than I was to get out. Granted, med board steps was a little different. I didn't exactly know when I was getting out.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just kind
You're
of
pretty
Yep.
much, it's
a
pretty much
guessing game.
starting a sprint with your legs tied to your arms,
Yeah.
like, and you're bound. And that's something that we really want to stress to people is while you're transitioning out, you got to start dealing with your stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta start taking accountability for your stuff. You gotta go. I recommend everybody see a counselor right off the bat
Oh yeah.
because it doesn't matter if you had any traumatic experiences or had a stressful environment. You need to talk to somebody about that transition because that right there in itself is actually something that we all deal with in different
100%.
ways,
Yeah.
and having somebody to talk to while you're going through a transitional period, I think would actually reduce the number of suicides. Like,
Yeah.
let's just face it.
And that's a lot of things they don't tell you getting out. Like I had no guidance whatsoever when I was getting out. Granted, it was med board, but still, like they were my chain of command was they hated me. I got called a sea lawyer a lot. Um, Mostly because I didn't like being made to do things that were either not by the book or by someone's made up definition of what they wanted done. And I'm like, I'm not doing something that's going to get me in trouble or something that's not right. And so they were telling me, oh, you're just faking your mental health. You're just lazy. You just don't want to do anything. That's what this is. You're making up all this stuff just to go to medical appointments and not be here. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, ask that to the gun that was in my mouth, and you tell me if I'm faking it or not. And
I mean, I kind of felt it when I bit down on it.
yeah, and they're like, and I'm like, hey, I know what it tastes like. It tastes like carbon and regret. So maybe you don't know me that well. So you think you do?
What
And
time frame was that, if you don't mind me asking?
This was I tried in September of 2019.
Okay.
It was a combination of I went through a fairly messy divorce, like probably most of us in the Navy. Everybody's got one. But then I just got into the Iwo Jima, and I did have a really bad cheese mess there. I will say, they're not all bad. These ones it was one in particular. He had this. he had it out for me. They had this bedrock rule, right, where you weren't allowed to date someone from the same ship. Didn't matter if you were the same rank, different divisions. Like you couldn't date anybody in the same command whatsoever, which I had never seen before. But I was like, all right, whatever. Like I wasn't really interested in that anyways. But this one chief, for some reason, he just was hell bent on trying to figure out if I was dating someone from the boat. And on 2 or 3 separate occasions, he showed up when I was on a date, like just at where I was on a date. Like somehow this dude just showed up at the restaurant or bar I was at. And I'm like, you live like an hour from where I live, dude. What are you doing here? Once the first time I was like, all right, that's weird. Okay, whatever. And then 2 and 3, I was like, bro, are you following me to see if I'm like try to get me in trouble? I'm like, don't you have a wife and family to be with? So that, and then I got thrust into an LPO spot as a second class when I got there. The command had one first class for all of AIMD for what was it? IM2. One first class for all of IM2. And he was the LPO. So the framers and the mechs, neither of them had an LPO. So they're like, hey, guess what? You're the LPO. And I'm like, what? I've been outside of doing mech stuff for 3 years because I've been safety and I didn't deal with any of it. And also I'd been a second class for like a year and a half. So I was like, no idea what I was doing. I was like, hey, just so you guys know, I was like, I'll do it. I'm down. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never been an LPO before. And they're like, all right, cool. Start writing evals. And I'm like, so I'm like writing evals. I got thrust into it. And I get it. It's hard. Something everybody has to go through. And I was like, hey, but I got to the point where I was like, hey, I'm kind of struggling. Like I'm a bit overworked. I kind of don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. Like, can you guide me? Can someone help me something? And they're like, you're doing a great job. And I'm like, okay, but like, I need some help. Like, can you help me? And like, yeah, you're doing great, man. I'm like, and that was just all I kept getting. You're doing a great job. And I kept getting more and more burnt out. And then I started getting like physically sick because I was just getting so burnt out. I lost 40 pounds because I was like, not eating, not sleeping, just working myself down. And then that's kind of where I got to the point, and then got super drunk one night, drank like a whole bottle of Jack Daniels. And then, there's the gun. It seemed like, okay. And then it turns out it wasn't one in the chamber. So then that's when it kind of got real, when I like racked it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is freaked me out. It stopped. And then I don't really remember. I know I got in my truck and drove somewhere and didn't remember how I got there. But then that's when I had been trying to get into therapy. And, if you guys, anyone who's tried to seek mental health appointments in the military and active duty, it's like takes months to get one.
Yeah. And in 2019, it was not where it needed to be at with that stuff. They were it was starting to come around.
Slowly, yeah.
It was starting to come around. I think it got kicked in the nuts during COVID. And then
I think it's because everyone else, people got stuck inside, and they're all their mental health starts declining, and they're realizing, oh wait, this is a real thing.
Yeah, we had a really big spike in active duty suicides during that time frame too. And bro, it's really just because we're put in high stress situation, and if you don't have an outlet for that, it just stacks on top of each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, compartments inside of a ship. You take your shit and you shove it in the hole, and then eventually your ship is going to be filled up with stuff, and it's not going to be able to displace any of that water called life, Yeah. And one day you're going to take a wave and you're going to capsize.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, especially a Navy one too. I love that. Yeah, sorry if that was too much. I'm pretty open about it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I don't mind telling the whole dark side of it.
When you get a chance and actually see some of the episodes, I mean, I myself have struggled with SI and what it's about, and for many, many years, and this is one of those things that unless we talk about it, it still remains and holds the power of it's okay to not talk about it, right?
Yeah.
We part of the reason why this podcast exists in the first place is to be able to go and have that kind of conversation and be able to have it be a safe place to say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's different for everybody. Like, I know some people, like, they don't like to talk about it. Talking about it to them is like they're going back towards it. And like, for me, it was kind of the opposite. It was like, if I'm not talking about it, it means I'm probably closer to doing it. So actually talking about it tells me I'm okay. I'm comfortable talking about it, type of thing.
And
Yeah.
I can relate with you on that part, because the way that I personally dealt with mine was for I was the suicide awareness coordinator, the SAPR guy, the DAPA guy, because I didn't want to go and talk to medical because I didn't want my career to be ruined, right?
Yeah.
So what was the only other option? The only other option was to be that guy or help with those programs so that I could vicariously get some help without
Yeah. Exactly.
risking my career from being over.
Yeah.
And Chris and I talk about that, and I want to circle back to something you mentioned, right? Um, about the specifics of when you went to the med board, right? And for me in particular, I don't know how it was for you, but for me, I went from being in a very good, comfortable position, right? Respected, happy, great things to once the limdo and the medboard process started and I started seeking help. Now it's essentially like the hot potato that just gets dropped. Nobody wants to pick it up, right?
100%. Yeah.
And you're nothing. You feel and you act, and it's difficult to be able to share with anyone else that is not experiencing those things how toxic it can feel um, from the other perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From you're alone, you're working, you're trying to do all these things, yet you don't know where you're going. And another thing, reason why this podcast exists again is because myself and Chris, when we were going through the med board, we were struggling, right? And you would think, Nick, that a senior chief and a chief with, well, Chris, he's a baby goat, with like 20 years in the Navy.
Oh,
Whereas,
yeah,
someone
that's
like me with 22,
just want to
uh,
point it out. I was a chief for way longer than you were,
hey, that's only
and
because they give it to the ACs like it's nothing, right?
yeah, they gave
Nick,
it to
Nick,
me.
Nick can attest to
They
this.
gave it to me. I was like
I'm
one out
just
of five,
I'm just saying
or
being in production control with all the chiefs does seem to help you make chief.
I mean, that's why the ACs
so
just
so.
magically get promoted.
Okay, okay. I'm getting defensive here. That's I was always spending my time trying to get the fuck out of there.
Hey,
I
we
would
don't
try
even know what you were spending
everything.
your time in or on.
Hey, what was that? You like going upside down on cockpits? We know you do. It's not to find the Skittles in there. It's
Oh
to
man.
service the air crew.
Did he what did he have a hit off? It must have had a big glass of Kool-Aid, I'm guessing.
Yeah, man. If I had a bag of Skittles right now and I knew we were in a squadron, I'd throw those all over the cockpit right now.
I bet you would. I
Starts
bet
tossing
you
them in the
would.
chest, starts tossing them in the intakes. Oh, you guys got a fun search.
Yeah.
So completely sidetracking,
Oh,
but
you're
we
good, dude.
were on the G Dub, right? And this was back. Shit, what year was this? This was maybe 2010, 11.
Okay.
We were in the Persian Gulf, right? Uh, and all of a sudden we started getting flooded engines, right?
Hmm.
And it was like, why are we getting flooded engines? And it was coins. And
Like
then we started, yeah, and then we started like no joke. People started putting like a stack of coins. They would go into the intake,
just set them
put
in
a
there.
stack of coins, put them in there, and that was at first. So the plane captains, they started going to mass for not diving the ducks the right way and things like that. And this was across all of the squadrons,
That's
right?
crazy.
So this was a CAG thing, and then afterwards they would put the coins on the second stage of the fan blades.
Climbing all the way in there just to do
Yeah,
that.
all the way in there, and
That's
you
some
know how
dedication.
difficult it is. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
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 I know.
So
I was a small guy. I always had to drive the intakes for bird strikes.
yeah, so no, it was intense, man. Like it got to the point that we were posting watches on top of the jets when, like, almost like an
That's
alert
crazy.
when we were not having flight ops.
That's like
It was
our version. We just had a phantom shitter.
oh, we had one too.
Yeah, we have those
Okay,
too.
so everyone has one. I figured everyone has one.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude. When so you were on a you were on a squadron on was your squadron on the GW in 2012 or 13 at all?
So 2012. Uh, so wasn't the G Dub on in Japan in 2012?
Yeah, yeah.
So no, I was in Whidbey Island.
Okay.
No, that's a lie. I was in Key West
That's right, because you
from
said you went to Key West after Japan.
yes, from so from '07 to '09 I was in Japan. 9 to 12 I was in Key West. 12 to 15 or 16 I was in Whidbey Island.
Okay. So I was in Whidbey at the same time as you then, because I got
Yes,
to
you
Whidbey in
were.
14.
You're in
Yes.
Whidbey in 14.
Yeah.
When did you leave?
I left April of 16, beginning of April 16.
Yeah, so we were all. I was there too
That's
at the same
funny.
time.
What's
Yeah.
so? Yeah, I was at VP 46 the whole time I was there.
Okay,
So
46. Yeah,
VAQ 140.
I was VAQ 137, 129,
129 too.
FRC Northwest, AIMD.
Oh, dude, I'm sure we probably know a lot of the same people then.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, guaranteed. I was up in Whidbey for a very very long time. In
That's
fact, I'm
cool.
actually next week I'm going to a chief event that's up there in Whidbey Island. That's going to be over at Camp Casey, and I'm going to be talking to chiefs about transitioning out. And the reason why I'm talking to the chiefs about transitioning out, well, obviously they're going to be transitioning a little bit sooner than a lot of the junior people.
Yeah.
But they also help junior people, so I want to get my information out to them.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're working on. Yeah, man. No,
That's
it's
why this is. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, dude.
I said that's why this whole podcast is such a cool thing. Like, I promise I'd intend on listening to more episodes than I did before I got on this. My wife had some medical issues in the hospital and out of the hospital for a couple weeks, so I honestly forgot, and then I got the reminder email, and I was like, oh shit, that's right, I got this thing. So that's when I started getting back on it. I got distracted with all that, and I was like, but I dropped the ball on pretty much everything when that happened. Like she's fine. It was nothing major, but I pretty much devoted all my attention to that and then kind of forgot. And I was like, shit.
Well, I'm
I should
glad
probably,
she's doing all right.
yeah. I was like, I should probably catch up on this, and not be that guy. I was like, oh, I don't know, I've never heard of this, but I wanted to come here.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's also super cool. You guys are both Navy, so I can't tell you the last time I talked to other Navy people other than my wife was Navy too. She was an AT.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, we met when I was stationed in Jacksonville because I met her right after I went limb duty. We were, ironically enough, I went from a command where you can't date someone in the same command, and then I met my wife at my command. But we were different duty sections. She was AT, I was a mech, and I was in the oil lab, so we didn't ever work together in any fashion, and there was no rule there, and
Is
no
she a
one really
nerd?
cared. Not really, no.
And it's funny.
She's like a weightlifter girl.
Interesting.
Yeah, not your typical AT, not like Dungeons and Dragons and like, you guys want to play Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff? Like, I'm more of a nerd than her.
We all know that the nerds are all in the mech shop and the frame shop. That's
Dude,
where they're
yes.
all at.
I'm the one with all the virgin lights in a gaming room. I was the mech.
The virgin lights, bro. Oh man,
geez.
that's hilarious. Yeah.
So I do want to touch back and circle back a little bit on the policy about the dating, right? So the policy about the dating, it's supposed to be that you're not supposed to date anyone across the military, right? Or specifically the Navy. That's something I know, right? So, but choosing to enforce it, not choosing to enforce it, you're right.
Yeah.
It does come to the command itself,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
And whoever's really interested in that policy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes the skippers wanna make sure that that's fully enforced, and that's the most important thing in their agenda, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, and it was weird because all the commands I had been at, that's the thing, like that's kind of the stereotype. Everybody knows on the boat, everyone's banging everyone. That's like kind of a boat stereotype. and maybe that's why. And it was weird enough. Apparently, what I learned is that it was an XO push, not a CO. The CO wasn't really interested, but the XO was really about it. But even most of the other chiefs, divos, they didn't really care. It was just that one chief just had he just had a hard on for it. That was his thing. Like, that's a weird thing to be. I mean, I guess whatever floats your boat, man. If that's what you're about enforcing, go for it.
Yeah.
The worst part was that after I went limb duty, he came to my limb duty command.
Oh no, that's awkward.
Yeah. And then when he found out I was dating my now wife, shit, this dude went to the chief's mess, went to the CO, and tried to get me sent to mass.
What?
Dead serious. He was he caused a whole uproar about it, and everyone there's like, why do you care? Like, they were all like, why do you care, dude? And I'll put it this way, I know one of my best friends, he's a chief, so I know more now about the chief's mess than I ever did, especially now that I'm out, because it's not like I'm gonna go tell my friends all the secrets and whatnot. But I know a lot more about the inner workings just from what he's told me, and we talk about it. And he was like the person I would go to, because I'm like, while I was in, he was a chief, and I'm like, dude, I need your help. I don't know how to deal with this. Obviously, I'm like, it's not like I'm having you don't go call my command, but like, how can I deal with this? And he asked me some questions, and lo and behold, I found out he was one of the chiefs. Like, yes, he was a part of the chief's mess, but the chief's mess didn't really care for him either.
So I'm gonna share something with you on air, right? About that. The generalizing the chief's mess is like generalizing all the E4s.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It's every
E4
command.
Mafia. Shout out to the E4 Mafia out there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where my heart lays, the E4 Mafia.
So it's not fair to the entity, right? To judge, even though we know it happens, and we already expect it, right? For every bad chief, there may be 10 good ones.
Yeah.
That are out there, but you only remember the bad one, right?
Yeah. This command had a bad group of them, but of all the commands, I was at 6 different commands my time in, and I didn't really have bad experiences with chiefs until that one chief and that last command. All the rest, it was like they were all, you might have your one or twosies, but that was it. And then for some reason, that little group was just like a really bad collection of them. And apparently, it was like a known thing, like that. Jax has a bad group that's around that area. I won't say what command, but apparently there's a group there that's known to be bad.
There's assholes that are leaders, and there's assholes that are followers. And,
oh yeah.
And you can't you can't rule them all out. And at one point in time, we're all assholes.
Oh yeah.
So
I know I was a little asshole at one point.
I've dealt with really difficult chiefs. I've dealt with really difficult airmen. I've dealt with really difficult third classes.
Oh yeah.
You get that third class. I'm going back to, back in the day where you got that airman that made third class. That's like, I'm a third class now. You must listen to me.
That's so, dude, that's when I made third class. That's kind of what it was like. People were still doing that. It was weird how much it changed from when I made it to when I got out. Like, how third class, no one cared. You made third class, it's like a glorified airman. But when I made third class in 2012, I was like sweeping the floor in the jet shop, and my senior chief comes up. He goes, "Hey, Petty Officer White, why are you sweeping the floor?" And I was like, "Oh, it's cleaning station, senior." And he goes, "No." He goes, "Why are you holding the broom and an airman's not?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, but that didn't happen anymore. That was the only time I ever had that happen. And then kind of after that, I just never saw that. It kind of didn't matter anymore. Airman, third class, was all just kind of the same.
Yeah. And, I always really try to empower my petty officers and even airmen. I would always talk to those airmen that were like, didn't make third class and stuff like that. And I'd be like, hey, look, I get it. It sucks. We've all been there. And here's the thing, this is just an opportunity for you to show everybody how great of a follower you can be, because if you can follow, then you can lead. Because the real big hidden secret is nobody's in control of anything. Dude, there.
Not at all. Like, we're all riding on the same, like, shit creek.
Yeah.
We're on the same canoe.
Yeah. We're all in the same same pond there. And yeah, man. No, thanks for bringing that up, dude. That's a great conversation. We haven't had a great conversation like that in a while, man.
Yeah, that was
About
good, dude. Like
about the E4 mafia.
I love the E4 Mafia. Like I was an E because I didn't make dude, it took me forever to make E5. I took like 9 tries to make E5. I don't read real good. That's why I was a mech.
Dang. You
Like,
should have been an AS.
oh, I know, or an AO. Yeah, dude. That's the mech test has got a lot of pictures, man. The ones without the pictures is where I didn't do good.
Yeah, they color coordinated AOs tests, and to all the AOs out there, they write the answer in red.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I was an E4, but I made E5 in 20. Got pinned in 2017, and I got out in 22. So I was only E5 for a little under half the time.
So, bro, we're 45 minutes into this episode, dude, and we're having a fun time, man. So let's knock out some of the stuff that we like to ask.
Yeah. Sorry if I got it off.
Oh
too off
no,
topic.
dude, no.
Not at all.
You don't have to be sorry for anything. Hey, while you were going through your transition, you may have found some type of media, whether it was a book, Netflix series, or who knows, a magazine or whatnot. What content did you find that you think that transitioning service members should be using through the transition?
So I've never been much of a book guy. I don't read much. There was one book that I read when I found out I was going through med. My med board took 2 years. So about a year into my med board, I was like, okay, I'm getting close now to getting out, and I'm probably going to get out, or at least I had a plan. Okay, I'm going to get out just in case I do. I'm ready. And the book's called Stop Being a Miserable Fuck. And it's by who's it by?
Can you spell that for me really quick?
I'm sorry. I used to be a miserable fuck. And Every Man's Guide to a Meaningful Life by John Kim. The Angry Therapist is what it's called.
I used to be okay.
And it's almost like, and I like the way it was. It wasn't kind of out like a regular book. It wasn't like chapter 1, chapter 2. It was almost like a workbook, even though you didn't write. There were spots where you could write stuff in and notes, but it was the way it was laid out. It was just, it talked about like being able to separate your feelings from your desires and feelings from what you knew you needed to do and all this stuff. And it really helped me. Like, I'm not good at I never was good at self-help books. I tried reading so many of them and I couldn't. They were just kind of dry and boring. It felt like I was reading like a medical book, but this one really was like a very layman's terms, dude, stop being lazy. This is what you got to do. You know, you got to do it type of thing. And it really helped me with figuring out what I need to do. Because the whole time I was in, hey, be here at this time. Got it. I just had to listen to what someone said, and that was it. I had to just be there. So it helped me kind of figure out how to manage everything else that I had to manage in my life, because all these things that I didn't have to worry about now were all on me to figure out.
Yeah, man. And you know, one thing I kind of learned recently, and it's kind of, bro, it's a lesson I learned recently, like in the last couple of days. It doesn't matter. No, like seriously, like, is somebody going to die from you not doing that thing that you need you think that you need to do? Like, is somebody like, I feed my kids, right? It matters when I feed my kids, but sometimes we put these unnecessary stressors on ourselves.
Right.
And the last couple of days, I took a little trip to Texas, and I think it's because I went back to the motherland, right? Right, Yogi?
Yes. In your case, yes. That's why he's so red.
Yeah, I'm so red right now because of that. But I realized something there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so that's funny. There's a chapter on that called "It Doesn't Matter," and it talks about like how, and it goes on. It's like, hey, like, guess what? Like, there might, like, some things, yes, you have to, but other things, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean you have to like essentially kill yourself and make yourself miserable to do this thing that you think has to happen right now.
Yeah. Have you ever done something and have you ever not done something? That's a better way to phrase it, and been like, what in the heck am I doing? Like, why did I not do it? And then you realize that thing that you didn't do didn't really matter.
Yeah.
and you punished yourself really badly during that
Yeah.
time frame.
That's something that I was terrible about when I got out, was especially like looking for jobs and stuff. I'm like, well, I need to do this to get this job, or I need to do this
Mm-hmm.
to get further at work. And then I didn't do it. And then I'm like, why didn't I do that? I should have done that. And it was just like this constant wave of like regret of something I didn't do. This past tense thing. I was always doing that to myself.
Yeah. No, that's real, man. That's real talk right there.
Because I think the one of the biggest struggles for me getting out, outside of just joining right out of high school and then being 30 years old and being like, I don't know how to do a job interview because I've never had to do one.
Yeah. And
And
you know those blue jacket of the quarter, you could just go up there and stand tall and say Sailor's Creed and
right, yeah,
bullshit some answers and you get
yeah,
the job, right?
yeah, no, that doesn't work. Doing the sales creative job interview doesn't work. They just look at you weird. No, I didn't actually do that, but I didn't actually do that, but I assume that's how it would go. No,
You get that one guy that's like, you didn't say it right.
Yeah, right. I'm like, oh, someone gets it. No, actually,
Hey,
I found
that would
out
be
there's
an
like
amazing icebreaker, though.
yeah, they're like, what are you doing, bro? Sorry, it's a force of habit. Chief, manager. You just like start like, bro, why are you calling me chief? Calm down. Sorry, I was late. They're like, it's okay. That's one thing too. I was like, the military, you're so like it depends on the command. Sometimes they have a different LPO, different chief. They're a little more lax about being late, but others are more strict. But I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. Be 5 minutes late. I was at work 40 minutes before everybody. Like everyone rolls in if works at 9, they're rolling in at 8:55, 9 o'clock. It's not like the military where if you're on time, you're late. And it was kind of weird. And I was kind of panicky about that at first. But I also learned that there's a good bit of predatory companies towards veterans that they see guys coming out and they know they're looking for a job and they'll try to grab them real quick and take advantage of them. And my first job was that.
Yeah. And veterans, they underestimate their value. If you have a college degree, you get out and someone throws, what you think is a reasonable number because you look at, well, I'm going to get this from my retirement and I only need to make this. So they throw out a low number at you. It's a negotiation. Great. It's a negotiation. And we're not used to that. We're like, okay, well, that's the pay that I have to accept.
That's literally what I did for like the first 4 jobs was like, oh, you'll give me that? Oh my God, thank you so much for allowing me to have that much. I was like,
yeah. Then you realize the guy next to you that got hired is getting paid 30 grand more.
My first mechanic job was my first job outside was being a calibration technician because I did calibration stuff. And it was supposed to be like a partial travel. They're like, yeah, you're going to be gone like 2 to 5 days a month out of town max. I'm like, okay. They were having me go to Wisconsin for 2 weeks at a time every month. And I'm like, this is not what I signed on for.
And if anybody heard me, I sometimes may say the wrong word and not over appreciate. I mean, underappreciate what they're worth.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Well, I see you understood what I was saying, Nick.
But yeah, I did. Yeah, I did that. Like, I got my first like mechanic job, and it was a dream job to me. I'm not gonna say the company. I'm not trying to badmouth the company. It was just
I appreciate that, man. This isn't here the badmouth organization.
Yeah. It was in the motorsports community. I was hyped about it. Big Car Guy was my favorite brand, right? So I'm like, awesome. I'm in for it. And I was like selling myself. I'm like, yeah, I was jet engine mechanic. I've done this. I'm like, but I kept selling myself. I was like, yeah, whatever I don't know, I can learn. I was trying to sell it. I was like, hey, if there's something I don't know, I'm great at learning it, but I know a lot. And I think the way I sold it was, I don't know, man, but I'll figure it out. And I went in at like $20 an hour, and I had to bring all my own tools. I had to have all my own tools at $20 an hour. I'm like, that's not, and I realized now that's terrible. Tools are expensive. I had a $600 debt to the Snap-on truck in my first month of working there. Granted, Snap-on's a ripoff and Snap-on's super expensive, but it's real easy when they drive up to your door at work and they're like, here you go. Here's your tools brand new. And they look all shiny. And by the way, here's a free t-shirt. I'm like, dude, look at the shirt I got. How sweet this t-shirt is.
Exactly.
Like, how'd you get it? I spent $600. That's how I got it.
When I was stationed in Key West, I worked for a mechanic shop during the time off or on the weekends. And dude, the Snap-on guy loved me.
Oh,
Dude, he would get my schedule and he would come when I was working. Because I mean I was getting paid full time for being in the Navy. The working in the transmission shop, it was just I had too much time on my hands, so I
yeah.
wanted to do something. And Key West, we both all know that Key West is known to be a place to go drink if you really
I've
want
heard that
to.
it's a chill command spot.
Yeah,
It,
I've
it
heard
can
and
be
may have partaken in this.
right. So with that, you don't. I coming back from Japan, my drinking days were very very minimal, right?
Oh
So
yeah, feel that.
it, so coming to Key West, I was like, dude, I don't even care. Let me do something productive with my life. And again, there was no day that at least half of my paycheck from the transmission shop would go to the Snap-on
Snap on.
guy.
Yeah, that was the thing. I get so hyped, and then I realized there's a guy. His kid's 21 years old. He had been a mechanic for a year, and he's making $4 more an hour than me. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, I
Yeah.
Exactly.
got like 10 years of working on cars and jet engines, but here I am doing clutch jobs, getting paid $4 less than a guy who's never touched a tool since a year ago.
Did you use a skill bridge on your way out?
So, and this is something that even I couldn't because the way I could be
Oh
wrong.
yeah, yeah. No,
Medboard,
you
I was
said
told you
you're a
can't.
med board. Now
Yeah.
there's what's the program called? It's like a skill bridge. It's DoD Warrior or something like that. There is a DoD version. I can't remember the name of
I
it.
know what you're talking about because I was just looking at it the other day because I've been looking at going into meteorology and NOAA's got a program that's like that. It's like SkillBridge, but it's not SkillBridge. It's a DoD. It's like veterans to something.
Yeah. You
I have
can't go work at McDonald's a corporate, but or Home
right.
Depot corporate. It has to be a DoD. Like I met somebody in the Limdu command that I was at, and they ended up working with the FBI. And then
Okay.
you can also work with the CIA. You can work with any federal organization, Secret Service. Yeah, you want to go do something like that. I'm going to try to look this up. All
Is it Veteran Employment and Training Service? Because that's one that I found.
Um,
That was on the NOAA website that I was looking into.
hold
so
on.
now every organization has its own version of things, but
Yeah.
the one that Chris is speaking about specifically is one for the Limdu personnel.
Oh, okay. And
The
see,
the o- the only problem is the lack of awareness for it, and two, the timelines, right? When you're you for here in San Diego, there's the IDES, um, and you get some training, right? And
yeah,
people come and then they do their speeches and their conversations. And unfortunately, the staff that does those kind of conversations, they're super overstaffed or understaffed. They are
yeah,
understaffed and over workload. So being able to make the process streamline, it is extremely difficult, right? And then that also includes your command. Your command has to be willing to let you go to it.
yeah,
Personally, my command, if you would think after 22 years of service, and this is literally my final stop because of everything that's going on, that it would be easier for me to be able to
yeah,
navigate this, right? Just like you, I also had a toxic leader.
yeah,
This toxic leader he was fired from his previous job. Um, Couple of things that he did negatively, and
yeah,
then he also had some medical issues that were going on with him. However, he wanted to stay longer to make nine, right?
right.
And he's still trying to do that, but he creates this huge atmosphere of toxicity.
Yeah,
Uh, and he wanted me to be the guy that he crucified. And just like you, he wanted to make an example out of me.
yeah,
And that didn't work out. I mean, I'm not an inexperienced sailor,
yeah,
and you're not gonna make me sign a report sheet or a counseling sheet just because you want to add paperwork to me when I'm not in
Right.
the wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I hear that. That's how I
and
got the nickname Sea Lawyer.
right. So I also I share that with you because it's not just about ranks, right? It's about
Yeah.
what's going on in the inner monologue of the leader, right? And it's
Yeah.
usually, unfortunately, the less experienced leaders are the ones that react that way. They really don't know how to navigate through a leadership process, so they result to intimidation, um, or
Power
other
grabbing.
forms. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Uh, I I I have friends here in San Diego who I didn't even know were here in San Diego that reached out to me because this individual asked them to ask the entire Chiefs mess across San Diego to report about me so that he could
Jeez.
get me on malingering. That is harassment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Across the board, that's harassment.
That's like a plain as
So
day too. It's not even like it's not
right.
even a question.
So I had to get the chain of command involved. Um, I had to get everyone to the extent that they had to change me to different leaders to for me to report because it
Yeah.
was that bad. So I share that with you. One, because I'm gonna be officially out of the Navy by the time that this releases, and then
Awesome.
two,
Congratulations, man.
yeah. So and then two, this I share that because this is something that needs to be talked about to
Yep.
demystify it, right?
Yeah.
We give it power if we remain it in secret, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not gonna throw out that person's name because I
Yeah.
don't
No,
want
I
to
hear you.
slander their name, right?
Yeah.
But
And
it also
we
goes
don't
back
wish them any ill intent either.
exactly,
Like there's things that I hope that they find our show and they realize that they needed help. That person
Yeah.
needs mental help. Go ahead, Yogi. Sorry.
no, it's okay, and it's one of those things that they. I wish that person the best. I wish that the pain that they're suffering right now internally, that somebody is willing to help them out across later on in their life. Um, and that hopefully that massive hole of pain that you were talking about earlier it gets filled.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny you say that the whole limdo stuff. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I felt like I was when it came to limdo and getting out in medboard, I felt like I was on the side of being the most knowledgeable because I had people, friends from all of the Navy coming to me like, hey bro, what do I'm doing to medboard? How do I do this, this, and this? Because I devoted so much time and research trying to figure it out. Because when you're in limdo and medboard, at least for the Navy, I can't speak to other branches. I'm not sure how it works for them, but there's a lot of things that are there to support you and help you and guide you, and it's most of it is like it's not necessarily that it's hidden, but no one talks about it. It's not shared. It's not information that's put out. You have to kind of find it yourself, and you have to get
Exactly.
lucky. If I forget what they're called, it's the person who they're like your liaison between the
The
VA and you.
Pueblo.
Yes, the
The
Yeah.
Pueblo,
Pueblo.
that's what it was. My Pueblo was awesome. That dude gave me so many resources. Like he went above and beyond what he had to do to help me figure out. And I mean, I got assigned an attorney for my claims to help me go through my medical record and make all my claims and all this stuff. And she helped me a bunch. So I had a lot of great resources that helped me and I wasn't getting it from my command due to partially they didn't know either because a lot of people don't know. And then there was just some people who didn't really care to help me. They see you on your like if some they see you on your way out, so they're like, well, you're on your way out, you're not part of this anymore, so like you're not my problem anymore. Like
Right.
Yeah.
and
Right.
I got told that I was gonna be, oh, you're gonna be a failure, you're gonna wish you never left, you're gonna do this, and I'm like, that's a tactic that I've seen a lot just in general when people want to get out. Like, don't get out, you're gonna hate it, you're gonna be miserable, you're gonna be poor, you're gonna and I'm like, that's not a great way to do it because then if they are that, they're gonna feel worse. Like it happens. Like I went through it. I've been poor. Like I've had low points since I got out, and then it's those times when I think about that. I'm like, oh, they were right. Like I'm a failure, and I know that I'm not. But like it's like they don't understand the negative effect that has if someone actually does get out. like you're saying,
Right.
like the scare tactics thing.
So, but I also being the devil's advocate that I am, right? I like to paint a different perspective. That
Yeah.
it's not that they are trying to scare you as a person, is that they themselves are scared
Yes. They're
and they just reflect they're pushing their emotions and their feelings out on
Yeah,
you.
it's
You
like
know
they're
what I mean?
forcing their insecurities onto you, and it's like, and I think
Correct.
that's why there's some. I think that's why there's people who are in the higher ranks or just been in so long that are so miserable because they're afraid to get out, so they just stick with what they know. It's like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't type thing. Like, and I get
Right.
that whole mantra, but I also didn't have a choice. I was like, if I get if the med board says, hey, you're getting out, I mean, sure, I can fight it, but that's pretty much it. And if I'm ready to get out, I'm prepared. Why would I want to prolong it anymore? Because I knew in my heart I was getting out either way. I had about a year and some change, year and a half, year and three
Hmm.
quarters left of my contract, and I knew, okay, regardless of what happens in my med board, I'm done. I'm getting out. Like, I'm over it. I want to move on with my life to a new chapter. Like, this just isn't for me anymore. And also too, I was tired of moving around. I moved. I never lived in one house for more than 1 year because I kept getting transferred, or it was move into a house, go on deployment, get back from deployment, transfer, move into a house, transfer, and I was like, God, I'm tired of moving so much.
Right.
But
Now let's go back,
yeah,
and I'd like to hear your perspective. And you've kind of bounced around it, but I wanna centralize it, right?
yeah,
About the medboard process, right? So you had an experience, right? And then you shared that you did mental health, right?
yeah,
And then so the mental health, you went and you seeked help.
yep,
Once you seeked help, from there, can you walk us through on what happened? Um, and the parts that I'm more curious about, that I want our audience to listen to, are the essentially the steps and the process of how the system works, so that
yeah.
they can hear that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I'm so glad you asked it. That's one something I really want to talk about on here because I tell this to friends that are in or like I'm in a couple like Facebook groups, like military Facebook groups, and I try to share this with guys all the time. Once I got sent limb duty, my Navy doc was like saw where I was at. She's like, "Yeah, I'm sending you limb duty. You need to not be on a ship. You need to get better. You need some help." And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." And getting into regular therapy appointments is hard in the military just because there's a lot of people who need help and only so many docs at each command or each medical. And one of the best resources was Military One Source because once I went limb duty, they start the process and back it's changed now. Back then it was in order to go to med board, you had to be limb duty for 6 months twice. You have a 6 month session, you go to review, your doc decides whether or not, okay, you're better, you can go back to the active duty or regular fit for full, or you continue on limb duty to try again. And then at that last one, they decide, okay, now you've been limb duty for 2 sessions of 6 months. Now we get to decide whether you are good to go and you're fit for full, or if we need to start the med board process. And it's different now. Now there's no time limits on
Yeah.
limb duty, so now they can, which can be a good thing for people who are trying to stay in. That can be a really good thing. And if your goal is to get out, it might make it a little bit harder. I don't really know. It's like that all happened after I got out, but so that was how it worked. And during that time, you basically the instructions are with limb duties, your medical appointments take priority. Like you're not supposed to stand watches, you're not supposed to do duties or whatever it is for the reason you're limited. Mine was mental health, right? So naturally, if I'm not in the right space of mind for things, I shouldn't be on watch and being in charge of stuff because like I might not be in the right headspace for it. And
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm gonna just mention something really quick. We were
mhm,
talking about skill bridge a little bit earlier, and I mentioned about a program for medical people on limb due status or med board, and
that's
I
awesome.
think it's something that's super important and doesn't get talked enough about because Operation Warfighter is a DoD ran program that allows people that are in these temporary assignments um, to actually go intern with them and learn about these um, other jobs. Like, so you could go work for the CIA, FBI, any federal organization. Um, and I will put this in the notes of the episode description. So, yeah, Operation Warfighter. Take a look at that program, DEA, Operation Warfighter Program.
I literally have never heard of that till just now, and I was pretty proud to say, like, oh man, I know all this stuff through Limdu, and I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a not all the Limdu knew about it, so we would hear about these things, and then we would go talk to them. Yogi kind of said how we formed the podcast, and remember those veteran resources that he said that I was bringing in and finding. I was doing
Yeah.
that for the command. I set up a program that brought in these outside resources like Operation Warfighter, and I brought in the DAV, and I brought in all these organizations that, you know, they need to know about. So
It's so awesome. Yeah. And
yeah,
that's why.
because if you're in limdu status, you should start your process with your VSO.
100%.
Just so that way you know what you need to do. Because if you're a limdu and you're in a situation where you don't know when your service contract is going to end, I saw a chief, not even BSing, in a limdu status. They would not let her reenlist, and they separated her. 16 years of service as a chief.
That sucks. That's tough.
Yeah. So these programs are super important.
Yeah. I get that. Like, I was kind of a bittersweet. My entire childhood growing up, the Navy was what I wanted to do. Like, everyone's like, oh, I want to do this, so do that. And mine was, no, I want to be in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Navy in World War II. My great grandfather was in the Navy in World War II. And I grew up, mostly my grandfather, I grew up with him living next door to me my entire childhood until he passed in 2015. And I heard all his stories. And granted, his stories, like, he was a gunner's mate in World War II, and his stories were telling him shooting down Japanese planes. All these crazy old war stories. And he's like, and him telling me stories about, oh man, when I went to shore in this place and I was going to the bars, like the classic stereotypical like World War II Navy guy stories you're hearing. He had them. So I'm like, man, the Navy's so cool. And I did the Navy Sea Cadets thing too that they have. I was in that for like 4 or 5 years. So that was what I wanted to do. And then when I was going through limb duty, it was between the whole dealing with mental health. I was also dealing with like, am I giving up on this thing that I've wanted for so long that I've also, am I giving up on a career that I've put, I'm halfway there. I'm over halfway done. Like but I just, so part of me felt like I was robbed of that. But at the same time, I don't know that I knew that I didn't want to stay as well. And I feel like if I would have chosen to stay, had I not gotten medically retired, I think I would be dead right now. And I mean that, I don't mean that in a dark way. I just feel like, it wasn't for me anymore. And I think it would have tanked my mental health any more than it already was. But so to touch back, I go off on tangents. I know. The limb duty thing, the biggest resource for me that got me through that was Military One Source. The mental health appointments that you can get through them, and I'm not sure what it is now. Back then, you could get 11 free appointments. You could, when you call them, you say, I need mental health help. My local medical cannot give me an appointment for, I think the minimum time you had to be at least a month out from an appointment. They'll give you free therapy appointments to a local civilian therapist, right? And you will have an appointment within a week from the time you call them. They will get you one. Yeah. And I did that. My Navy doc suggested that to me. She's like, I know you want to talk more. I just don't have the appointments. So you should try this. So I went to that, and I had already used it. But I thought once you use up your 11, that's it. But no, you can keep asking for more. If the command you're at, like the medical for your command is backed up on appointments, you can use it as much as you need to.
That resource is underutilized, and
100%.
I just found out about a program that my wife's work provides that they give. Get this, they give 25 sessions every calendar year of a counselor. You could have a therapist, you could have marriage counseling, you could have coaching, like
life coach. Like that's awesome.
Life coaching. And that's 25 sessions per person in your family. And that's not through their health care.
That's just
and it renews every single year.
That's insane.
And if you have couples counseling, they don't charge it to both of them. They charge it to just one person, so you could really wanted to do marriage counseling once a
Get
week,
50 of them if you wanted.
get 50 of them.
That's crazy. That's
That's
crazy.
why is it that Military One Source doesn't do the same thing?
Yeah,
And she's in a high stress job, very high
yeah.
stress. Why do we not have that as military members? That's insane.
Yeah, that's the geez, I don't even know. That's me. Like I would see that and be like, I don't even care if the job is. I want to work there because the VA is not much better with with appointments for mental health. Um, and the cool part about Military One Source is because they work with the military, 90% of the time the providers they're working with go hand in hand with TRICARE. So you can get referrals from your military doc to get sent to your same therapist that you were seeing through Military One Source. That's what I did. I talked to my doc and said, hey, I'm seeing this therapist through Military One Source.
Yeah.
Can I get a referral to civilian healthcare for it? And they said, yep. And then I had appointments every single week for almost 2 years of my therapist.
And that's through One Source. It's just the advertisement of it.
Yeah,
Like
it's not
it's just
well
not
known.
there. And I'm not saying that they have Military One Source. So if you're out there and you're thinking that the military doesn't have this, they have it.
It's there,
But
yeah.
where's the advertisement for it? We
Yeah.
need to talk about it more on forums like this. This is where these conversations need to be going.
And I feel like that was something that like Military One Source things that's the things that should have been put out during, like, I don't know, safety stand downs, like mental health is a part of safety. And that was something that's never put out. I found out about it because of my best friend, one of my best friends who's a chief now. Me and him were a third class and second class together, and he knew about it because his best friend who's a chief told him about it. And but it was like a word of mouth thing. I only knew about it from people like friends. It wasn't like I never heard it once in any commandos ever I get put out by anyone.
And so you're touching back on again why we created this, right?
Yeah.
So we got here, both Chris and I, right? We were in San Diego, and we after 20 years of being in, you would think that I would know of a lot of organizations that are there to help you out, right?
Yeah.
Or you would think that it's almost like the welcome aboard package. Here's your welcome aboard package, and move forward. And you would think also as a LIMDU personnel that you're getting transferred from overseas, that's going to be part of your welcome aboard package. He's like, hey, here you are, man. Here, let's help you out, right? Onboard you and get you to the right places. And it wasn't like that, especially even for me, right? Or for Chris. So me and Chris are bouncing ideas back and forth. His command is being fantastic, and they're doing all these things. And then we started getting connected to what we call the Sea of Goodwill, which is the nonprofit and the for-profit organizations that are out there to try to help us out. And then we had an epiphany, like, why is it that we are struggling to find this information that should be readily available to everyone, and it's not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That alone, having the information like you guys are putting out and all this stuff would cost almost nothing to the military to have this information disseminated more and help leaps and bounds in the mental health, like across the board.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of guys who they don't know anybody who knew this stuff, and they don't think that there's anyone to talk to. They don't think they have an option or an avenue, so that makes it worse for them. I was that guy for a little bit, and I got lucky that I had people who knew about these things, and I had good friends that were there for me. My best friend who's a chief, my buddy, I'll call him my buddy Shane. He's like a large part of the reason I'm still alive today.
Dude,
can you talk more about that?
So, yeah. So, he was there. He was one of my buddy Shane's been one of my best friends. We were third classes and second classes together. We met at one of my commands. I don't put too much because he's still in. I don't want to put out too much of his info or anything about that, right? But we were stationed together, became buddies working together. So then it was we were CFLs together. We were hanging out on the weekends together. Our wives were friends. It was just kind of a whole thing. We hung out all the time. We played Xbox together. We hung out at work. And then he transferred, went to Jacksonville. I transferred, went to Jacksonville. So I followed him there. I lived with him for about a month when I transferred to Jacksonville while I was waiting for my apartment to be ready, because my divorce happened during the time right around when I was transferring. Like, so I ended up, when I transferred, I left her behind because she went to go stay with her new boyfriend or whatever. So I went and stayed with him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You had to throw that one in there.
Oh yeah, dude, why not?
It didn't hurt me that she moved in with him immediately after that.
I know. I'll be honest, because I'm just speaking to the mindset of myself in 2018, time frame.
Yeah.
And so he helped me out so much, more than anyone, even friends. Like, he did so much more than he even had to. Like, I'm a car guy, so I had 2 cars, right? So I had my pickup truck and I got my Mustang, and I had to go find an apartment. So he was my house signing leave. I drove my Mustang down to his house in Jack, stayed with him, looked for a place to live, left my Mustang in his garage for 2 months until I was ready to transfer, moved down there, lived with him for a month while I'm waiting for my apartment to be ready to move into, because I couldn't get it right in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he was adamant about, hey man, what are you doing this weekend? Like, come over, have dinner, checking up on me, following up on me, making sure that like I'm good, and like spending hours on the phone with me on work nights, whatever, to make sure that I was okay, and just talking me through shit. Cause it was everything from, the divorce stuff to Navy stuff, like anywhere in between and everything. Like, he was there for me. Like, not to say my other friends weren't, but he was the one that was on the phone with me for hours at a time and whatnot.
And you have inspired me to give a shout out to someone who played, to a family specifically who played the similar role for me. Her name is Priscilla. Priscilla Smith now, and she married one of our guys from the same command when we were in Japan. His name is Terry Smith, and we were very close when we were in Japan. And then I went to Key West, and we kind of separated. But when I saw them back in Whidbey Island, I was in a very dark spot in life, and I really owe so much of my growth, so much of being here also, and not feeling like I was alone to them. So thank you for triggering that moment of
Yeah,
inspiration,
absolutely,
because
man.
I've never really I've thanked them. Usually it's involved a couple of cups of alcohol for me to get to that point of being able to
Yep.
share that.
Yep.
But
I hear that.
but now, I mean, I don't drink anymore, but I do want for one of these days for them to know how much and how thankful I am to them for that. And in this case, it was your friend
Yeah.
who did play the same role, and that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely great, dude. It's funny when he literally called, like, right when you came back. He had just called me because we're supposed to catch up. And I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna do this podcast. Let me call you back in like a little bit."
Yeah, you could be like, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think I was going to be on the podcast for an hour 22 minutes.
Yeah,
but
that's all right. I'm
that's
happy
what
with
happens
this
when you have a
longer.
good one.
Yeah, because I've been enjoying this so much. I'm like, we don't have to do a podcast. Can we just hang out and talk? Like, this is too much fun.
Yeah. Well, that's what this is all about, man. And I think that one thing that really hurts our community is whenever we get out, a lot of us associate and tie ourselves to that uniform, that rank, that
Yeah.
color of beret, or whatever you got pinned to your chest for a warfare, or the qualification, the job title.
Yeah.
We get tied to that, and we think that that's our purpose.
Yeah.
And so when we get out, we find ourselves in a situation where we're lost.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
And I think that once you figure out your purpose, and it's usually an event, something happens and your purpose just clicks right back in.
Yeah.
And you realize that it's not the uniform. It's not the things that you do while you're in there, the cool ports or the deployments or the brotherhood. It's actually the people that you keep around you. It's actually is the brotherhood. It's the people that you keep around you.
100%.
What was it that it took for you to find your purpose?
So I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure I found it yet. I feel like I'm trying to, and I feel like I've had some what do you call it, false purposes. Like I felt like something clicked, but then it didn't work out. Um, I had a real, like, for instance, for me, it's been like job wise, has been like trying to find a job that I'm passionate about or enjoy, like not just something that I'm doing because I need money to live. Has been difficult, and I had one that popped up. It was a dream job. It was a IMSA. I don't know if you're familiar with the IMSA racing team. I had a job opportunity with them, with an IMSA racing team. And it didn't work out, but I did get to go fly out to Laguna Seca Raceway and work with them for a weekend. They flew me out to work with them as a kind of a tryout thing, and I didn't make it. It didn't work out. And part of it was just team fit. You have to find a group of people that really vibe together outside of a professional level to work well, and didn't fit into that, and that's okay. And I think part of that was part of me because I'm a vet. I think part of it being a vet, being in the Navy for so long, like I find myself having a hard time just relating to people who weren't in it. It's nothing against them. It's just because I'm so different from that, and I guess I grew up so differently in my adult life. And then the part of it was a skill set. Like that was above my skill level, and I'm totally okay with that. To me, that's the top league. That's the pros. Like,
have you ever talked to somebody that's like 20, 30 years older than you, and you seem to get along with them a lot more
often than not? Yeah. All of my friends are older than me.
I just want to say the military ages you.
Oh,
that's what it is.
On the mindset, yes.
Yeah, my closest friends are like 4 to 5 years older, not a whole lot, but like when I go to the VFW and these guys that I'm talking to, they've all been out for 10 years, 15 years. I'm getting along with these guys like they're my best friends. I'm like, why am I getting? And part of it's like the military, the veteran thing. Like I notice when you're a vet now, you get out. It doesn't matter what age you are, you be best friends. I made one of my best friend, like one of my favorite buddies at if you guys have ever heard of Irreverent Warriors?
Yes.
So Irreverent Warriors is a you know what it is, Chris, you know?
No, he's looking it up
right now.
Okay. So it's a quick synopsis. It's an organization where they bring veterans together to prevent veteran suicide through humor and camaraderie. And they do these things called Silkies hikes, and they're all across the country.
Yeah, I've seen them. They do them in San Diego. I accidentally stumbled into one while I was practicing. I used to do half marathons. No, I'm not even joking. I just was like, what? I may have been running behind them, and I was like, you guys got it. No.
No, like
I'm his best friend. I did not do that.
No, it's such a cool organization. Me and my wife, and it's cool too. Me and my wife both being vets, it's something we both get to do together, and it's something that's cool about it too. It's only for vets. Like they really appreciate family and friends supporting, but they only want vets there. They want it to be a very exclusive event for vets. And me and my wife have gone to 2 of the hikes. We went to one out in what was the? Oh my God, I'm blanking on Fayetteville, North Carolina. Jeez. Out in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then we went to the Jacksonville, Florida one because that's where we went back down to Jackson with some friends, and they're so much fun. And it's a culmination of it's military, Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy, like everyone, and it's ranging from guys my age who are kind of like either midway through their careers or just got out, guys who are 18, 19 who just got in, and then like some 56-year-old dudes who are in Vietnam, and it's a great range. And I made a really good buddy there that like. This was a serious situation. I don't mean it's a joke, but like if you'd have asked me if I would be standing on a beach in short shorts wearing a plate carrier, hugging another grown man and crying about our suicide experience, I would not have believed you.
So you're playing kumbaya with each other.
Pretty much. Like he makes these ropes out of 550 cord, and he's got 13 knots. Or is it 12 math? 1, 2, 13. Yeah, 13 knots. Sorry. 12 of them for each of the veterans. The half of the 22 a day, or 11. I'm 11, 12. I don't math good. I'm so sorry. 11, 12 knots.
That's why you're a mech.
That's why dude. Yeah, I'm a mech. I got 10. I can't count past 10. So There's a knot for each veteran that takes themselves half of it, and then you're the extra knot that you're still here. And he gave me one of those, and we kind of talked about it. And he was in Navy. I think he was a senior chief. I can't remember his rate, but I'm pretty sure he was aviation as well. And then I just hit me, I'm crying. I'm like me and this guy are hugging on a beach. And then I did fireball shots with some Marines 30 seconds later. So it was just a weird range of emotions. But the kind of point you meet some amazing people.
They're probably all combat veterans too. The ones from Iraq, but then you just show up. You're like, yeah, I wasn't in the same situation, but we're gonna be best buds.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And I got a lucky purpose of I worked with Marines when I was at that command in DC at VR1. It was partial Marines, so my chief was a Marine Master Sergeant for a portion of the time because we didn't have a chief.
Yeah. I got this one last thing, man, and the mindset. So, we all it doesn't always take effect right away, the transitioning mindset. What did it take for you to finally get into that mindset of, I got to start transitioning over?
Are you talking about while I was in or while I was out or just kind of in between?
It's all three of them. All of it.
So,
and before you answer, I want to highlight on what you just asked and the importance of being able to share that part, right? Because the mindset that you have while you're still in is completely different, right? Then in your case, once the med board starts, you're like, well, I'm going to leave anyways. But even then, your mindset is completely different than being a month out after you get your results from Washington and then your findings, and then it's like officially you are gonna get out, right?
Yeah.
And then that it continues to change. So I'm glad that you bring it up, and would love to hear more about your perspectives.
So I think it started with when I went to MedBoard was my realization, okay, this is actually a real possibility now that I'm gonna be getting out, medically, not at my end of tour, which is not for another year and a half. At that point, it was almost 2 years, or a little over 2 years. I was like, okay, I need to start figuring out where am I gonna live? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do is the biggest thing. I kind of panicked because I'm like, the military is all I've known, and I'm like, well, I have no idea how to be an adult outside the military. So how do I figure that out? And it started with calling around, just talking to family, my dad, friends who weren't in, things like that, just to kind of ask about jobs. And then I kind of started looking up, just Googling jobs for veterans, things like that. And that was kind of my realization. And then when I was about 4 months out from getting out, and I started I landed on a place and I started looking at jobs in the area, and then I got my results, and it was like, okay, medically retired, you're getting out, you'll get your orders within the next 3 to 5 weeks. I'm like, okay, cool. So now I know it's happening. I know that I'll get orders in 3 to 5 weeks, so I can estimate that in 3 to 4 months I'll be out, give or take, because it's kind of a vague, you never really know. And then that's when I started applying to jobs. In that company that I got a job with, I told you it was kind of predatory. It makes sense now why I got that job so easily and so far in advance. Because they hired me on, I signed an employment contract 3 months before I was out of the Navy. And I realized, I'm like, it makes sense now, but I got lucky in that sense. A lot of people don't get that. They don't have that job lined up. So it's more real when they get out. For me, it was a little bit more real ahead of time because I had a job lined up. I knew where I was living. I knew the general area of where I was living. Okay, I'm going to be within 45 minutes of this town in North Carolina. So I got to kind of look at this radius. And then I got my orders, and it was May, the first week of May in 2022. And they're like, all right, your last day with your, it was July 29th, but I had a bunch of leave. So with my separation leave, I had 3 weeks. And my lease was up on my apartment at literally the same week that my orders were, that lined up with my leave. I'm like, it lined so weird that my lease happened to be up the same week that my orders landed. So where I could just be out of my lease and move. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh shit, I have to find somewhere to live in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then that kind of, it got more real then. So she was my fiance then. We got engaged 6-7 months before that. And we were like, okay, we knew we wanted to move to North Carolina. We picked North Carolina. And I got out and I started. And it didn't really feel real for a while. It was just kind of weird. I kept waiting for the phone call to come back to work. And oh no, it's just kidding. I'm on leave. I got to go back. I kept waiting for my leave to end, but like it ended. And I'm like, oh, it's actually done. It took like 2 or 3 months for it to set in that I didn't have to go back. And I kept thinking my phone was going to ring and tell me, just kidding, we were wrong. You have to come back. Like, that's not how that works, but that's what I kept thinking and worrying about. And it took until after my third job out of the Navy to realize that I need to transition more. That I kind of had to change my mindset to be, I'm not in the military anymore. I don't have to act like I'm in the military anymore. I need to kind of adjust to what the civilian workplaces work like, which is very different. And that's kind of what set it in, was not fitting in at these jobs and not finding a job that I was happy with and I couldn't relate with the guys at work. I kept looking for that camaraderie and brotherhood that I had, and I could not find it. But I had to come to terms with, that's most likely not going to be something that I'm going to find. Not so that you can't find it, but it's exponentially harder to find it on the civilian side, because like you guys were saying earlier, you're not going to finding somewhere that has other vets is really, really hard. You're like out of all the places I've worked, there's been like 2, and we didn't ever really work with each other. We just worked at the same place and we saw each other every now and then. And the other guy did like time in Vietnam, was way older than me, and we also didn't work together. So there was not a lot of other people like it, interactions. And that's when I realized, okay, I have to kind of figure out how to either relate and find that brotherhood and camaraderie otherwise,
elsewhere.
or I just have to understand that I'm not going to find it in my work. And I realized after that last kind of racing job thing, when I decided that I'm not going to do mechanics anymore, I decided, okay, I've given this a fair shot. I've spent 1.5 years and some more trying to do this, and it hasn't worked out. Okay, maybe it's not meant to be. That's kind of when I turned my attention elsewhere. I got this remote job and I started teaching safety. And then that's when I found Krieger Gaming. And that's kind of what started okay, I can find this brotherhood and this camaraderie and stuff elsewhere in the civilian life. That doesn't have to be at my job. And it most likely isn't on the civilian side. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, again, us vets, when we get out, we scatter. We're everywhere. Yeah. So unless you're in a government job, there's not a lot of us in one place.
Right.
I mean, every year there's 200,000 plus new veterans made. So
well, yeah, that was before. Now with the retention, and that is a crisis, right? Right now, like this year and last year, the amount of veterans that actually left the military, it was about 100,000. So about half of that, right? And then we're having a retention and a recruitment process or crisis, so that's also changing those numbers out. But let me ask you, Nick, if you could, knowing what you know now, right? If you could go back to that motivated young adult, because you were in ROTC, you were in other clubs in preparation to join the military, right? If you could go back to the earliest part of your life when you started planning to be part of the Navy, what advice would you give yourself before you went through that whole process?
So this is one question I really thought about, because I know you guys, I saw you ask this, and this is what I looked for to see what other people said on the podcast. Like, I would scroll to try to find this question and stuff, and like thought about it, because and I'll be honest, I'm the first one to say I'm a bit of I'm salty about the military, and I'm a salty sailor. I feel there are times that I feel like I wasted 11 years of my life because I struggled so hard to find a job outside. I'm like, because back then, it's different now. The way the military was marketed to us was, oh, you don't want to go to college? That's cool. Join the military. You're going to get this experience. You're going to see the world. You're going to get out, and you're going to have a great job, and it's going to be great. And then I get out, and I'm like, well, I have 11 years experience doing this, but I can't find a job doing it. Yeah. So I'm like, why? I think I would have told right now, with the mindset I have now, with the way things are going, I would probably tell myself to not do as long as I did, and to get your experience, get your GI Bill, and go to school for what you're passionate about, instead of just trying to force yourself to use what you learned so you feel like you didn't waste your time. Because I realized that's what I've been doing. I've been forcing myself to find a job based on what I did, so I don't feel like I wasted my time, instead of just trying to do what I'm passionate about. That's why I've been looking into the meteorology thing, because I'm kind of a weather nerd. I like watching the storm chaser shows. I play games around storm, like storm chasing games, and I'm more passionate about that than I am about being a mechanic. I like being a mechanic on my own cars and build my own cars for fun and doing that. I don't like working on other people's shit.
There you go.
But
There you go.
Now, go
so
ahead.
I was just like, that's what I think I would have told myself, is to, even if I did tell myself, okay, stay in if you want to, if you're enjoying it, stay in. Because there was a lot of times that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the travel, I enjoyed the friends, but you don't have to make it all about what you did when you got out. You can do something different. It's okay. It doesn't mean that your time was a waste.
Right.
Even though sometimes I feel that way. And that's my experience. Some people don't feel that way. That's just mine. I think that's a culmination of struggling to find a job and then being med retired, and you kind of being out of my control. I felt that way, but just because you feel that way doesn't mean that it's what it is, and it doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing you did when you got out. I know plenty of people who do completely different things from what they did in the military.
Well, Nick, I'm glad that you did stick it out so you could be on the show hanging out with Yogi.
Yeah,
and I
I'm glad I did too, because I never would have met my wife if I would have gotten out earlier. And that's the biggest thing for me, that is the biggest reason why I don't regret being as long as I did and the way things are going, because I never would have met my wife, and she's my best friend, and I wouldn't be able to be happy with her like I am today.
So just to be clear, she's not behind you.
No, she's not in the room.
Just making sure you're in a safe space.
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I'm so happy.
Are you?
We're good. We're good. The door's shut. We're good.
Now,
I'm safe.
So you mentioned that because of how you got out, because of all of the things that went through, and the experiences that you have had since you left, that you feel at times that your time in the military may or may not have been some of it wasted, right?
Yeah.
And that's an absolutely fair assessment. The counter question that I would ask you is, what if you knew that you were going to be getting possibly med boarded out anyways, right? If you could go back in time to when right before you enlisted, right? Because you enlisted right out of high school, am I correct?
Yep. I was in debt for like 11 months, but then that was it.
Me too.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to that junior, senior in high school and sit down and have a conversation with him and tell him, hey, Nick, this is what's going to make you successful when you join the military, and it's going to pay dividends later on in your career. What advice would you give yourself to make the military successful?
I think, and this is like kind of a joke of movies, but choose your rate, choose your fate, I feel like is legitimate to an extent. And I would have chosen a rate that has better advancement. Aviation rates don't have great advancement. They haven't had it for a while. Like when I was up for first class or the mech, it was like 4%, I think. It's terrible. But most aviation rates are, unless you're an AZ, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I saw a shot. I had to take it.
Default,
I am. Okay, this is what kind of AZ I was.
Hey, Chris, we don't want to hear about you. We're here.
Oh, he's getting coins? Nick. He's getting coins.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, it's not a coin.
No, it's not a coin.
Close enough.
So this is what kind of AZ I was. I was a shooter. This is a shooter book. I'm a shooter.
Wait, like Hold on. Correct me if I'm
I
wrong, and I may be misremembering. I thought shooters were only officers.
no,
No, no,
I'm
no,
a
no, 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 no.
troubleshooter of
Oh,
aircraft.
troubleshooter,
You're,
not like a.
yeah.
I'm thinking ABE. I'm thinking
No, no, not
ABE
the.
shooter. Yeah,
And
not the wrong one.
also to be fair, you got chiefs that do it, and that shoot, depending on the position, depending on the location.
Yeah.
So there are flexibilities to be able to do that.
Oh no, I know. I just
Yeah.
had to take that. I just saw an opportunity.
Oh
to
no,
take
it's
shot,
a
and I
it's
had
a
to
cheap
take it.
shot, but I'm a weird AZ. I was the AZ, always trying to get out of the AZ shop.
Well, here's the thing: AZs used to be mechs back in the day. AZ and mech were the
Correct.
same rate. So
Correct.
like, that's the thing that I would say. Like, mechs are A's. A lot of AZs are mechs at heart.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I want to highlight something that you mentioned because I do believe that is a huge, huge, huge thing for anyone that is about to join the military,
Oh yeah.
right? Learn not what your detailer, not what maps, um, about the job that you're joining. Don't only base it on them.
Oh
Reach
no.
out to any veteran who actually served in the military under
100%.
that rate to
Yeah.
be able to have a conversation and explain at least their perspective
Yeah.
on how that job is, right?
'Cause-
Because you're right, Nick, is choose your rate, choose your fate. It's huge. It's huge. And I think to an extent, the way that the mechanism is set is to make sure that you just get in and work it out as you go through, right?
Yeah,
But
and
there
like,
would
oh, well,
be
you can
better
cross rate. You can
retention.
cross
Yeah,
rate, but that's not
yeah,
always the case.
Yeah.
exactly.
And just because you're that rate though, you're also not defined to those roles. Like your rate does not define what kind of job you get. I
Yeah,
was
Well, I
I
disagree with that.
it's
So,
it
and
depends on
I
the
this is
rate.
why I say this. No, hold on, Chris, because you have the ability to go to the ship. You have the ability to go and have shore duty, right?
yeah.
And I tell you specifically for me, right? As
Oh
an
no, you're
AME,
unless you're an
no, no,
Amy.
no, but no, but see, that's something that I want to make sure that our
Can
audience listens to,
do
right?
Amy's go to
That
P3s?
that also that also a lot minimizes the ability of where you're going to be stationed at, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're an MA, you know for a fact that you're going to be standing watches 90% of your career,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
and all
And
those special
it's not
duties they
like
tell you about, none of them are guaranteed,
exactly,
and a small percentage get those duties.
exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can talk about that. When it comes to raids, MOSs, which is the same thing.
Yeah,
The Navy, we just use the the term rate. The Marine, and I want to say the Army also chooses MOSs.
I think isn't Air Force
Um,
MOS too?
I think so.
I think we're the only ones
I
who would
think
want to be
so.
different.
Yeah. Well, do
Us and the
you
Coast
okay,
Guard.
you were still in when this happened. Do you remember when they took our rate?
Dude, oh my God. People, I have never seen more of an uproar from everybody in. I'm like, if y'all would get behind this on so much other shit, we'd have a much better time. But that's what y'all are upset about?
Yeah.
Like, I get it, but like
That's what it
everyone
was.
lost their shit. It lasted like what, like a month or two?
N-
And they're like, just kidding.
No,
No, it was like
no, it lasted a
days.
week.
It was barely a days.
And
Like
they
it
were
was
like,
so quickly.
oh, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. Like, because everyone had so much pride in it, because it becomes, well, the Navy becomes
Yeah.
like a pride thing. Like mechs are better than AOs, and like and
We could
ATs are
just get
nerds.
that for beards. Come on,
Right.
guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like get that mad about beards. And like if everyone got that much an uproar about beards, we don't have beards by now. Like how that part of made me want to stay in. Like that was half of it. I just want a beard, man.
That right
Yeah.
there proves to you that if everybody would actually just work together, you could actually
You
get
could
something
change,
done.
affect
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if everyone gets behind something, big Navy sees it and it's gonna change. But I think it's hard because people are like, it's hard to see change when you're one person, but it's also everyone there's people who are like they don't want to catch the
Bro,
repercussions and the
I
pushback.
feel like that's when we entered the twilight zone.
Yeah, I was like, it was crazy, and it didn't matter if
And
you
then
were a boat rate.
everything afterwards was like Twilight Zone as well.
Yeah.
Like
I feel like that was where the Navy took a turn, and then COVID just made it worse. I think
So
COVID had
for
a huge effect on everything,
yes,
it did.
especially
100%.
retention.
So for everyone that doesn't know, back I want to say in 2000. Actually, I don't even want to lie about the year.
I want to say it was
Um,
2017.
it sounds correct.
I know I was
But
stationed in DC, so it had to be between 16 or 18.
there was a time when there was a huge uproar, and it's still going happening right now, where there was a huge
2016.
shift in 2016. There was a huge shift of getting the specialists, right? So Chris, he's an AZ. He's specializes in data, um, recollection, the logbooks, making sure the administrative side of the house is taken care of, right, and going up on that pipeline. Nick, he was in charge of making sure and learning about the jets, the mechanics, how the uh, propeller jets are different than the F-18 jets, than the um, helicopters, and how they all operate and the differences behind them and how to fix them and how to be proficient at them, right? As a chief, because you're now on a leadership position, there was this bright idea of, well, since you're a leader, you can be a leader to anyone and everyone. So if you've been in aviation your entire career, you can go to the ships and also do that, or you can go to the CVs, or you can go to the submarines. A chief is a chief everywhere. Well, the problem with that is that yes, a chief when it comes to leadership is a chief everywhere, but when you don't know and you don't have the foundation, you cannot be a subject matter expert on something that you have never experienced
Right.
before.
Yeah.
So, and that happened in 2016 when there was policy that was passed to remove the rate, and that was not even talked about to anyone. It was a surprise,
Boom, here you go.
and yeah, and as we've mentioned, that only lasted a couple days, and everybody got their stuff back.
Yeah. It's funny because right around that time, my chief was in IT and I was a mech in safety. Because that my command, it was a super small command. We had 64 people, including the triad. And it
Wow.
was
Wow.
super top heavy. There were two chiefs. One was the senior enlisted leader, who's the senior chief, and the other was the IT chief, and he was my chief. But he was the chief of like me in safety, some people in operations, and admin, because there was just no other chiefs. So it was like, and he was like, hey, he'd come in and he'd be like, Pastor White, do you have, he's like, what is that safety report you got to do? And I'm like, this. He's like, yeah, is that done? I'm like, yeah, chief. He's like, all right, cool. I don't know what you got to do, but you got it done. Because he didn't know. Like, he didn't know. He didn't work in safety. He's an IT. He
Yeah.
didn't work in safety.
Hey, I do want to state for the record that it was not weeks. We were mistaken. It was 3 months.
Was it?
Yeah.
So it was in policy wise,
Yeah.
but the way the execution and how it worked out, it, when it because it hit the floor, but in order to revoke it and pull it out, it takes time.
Yeah.
But the execution of actually being able to maintain that, it was a lot shorter than that.
Yeah. I know that there was like some nav admin or I want to say a nav admin or
Yes.
all admin that came out and said,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, about this. Yeah, we're sorry. We messed up.
Suspended. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got
So,
suspended until they could figure out a way
Yeah.
to
but
get it to
3
work, but
months,
they couldn't get it to
3
work.
months is some seriously fast time for
Nothing
that
happens
kind
that
of
fast in the
change.
military.
No,
Correct.
nothing.
It took how long?
Except for a uniform change.
Yeah, I was to say, like the Type 3s. I remember, well, because Type 3s were initially like what do you call it? It was
Blueberries.
no,
Oh,
when they
type
went to,
threes.
it
Yeah,
was
they were for
before it was
you had to be in theater.
theater. That's what it
Yeah.
was. Yes, because that's how I got them. I went to Bahrain on deployment, and we got those for deployment. But then when I got back and I got to a new command, they authorized, hey, we're switching them. So if you have them, you can wear them. So I was wearing them like a year and a half for everybody else, and I was so happy because they were. I liked them better than the blueberries personally. You guys probably like utilities more, I guess.
No. To be
Really?
honest, Yeah.
No,
So
I like
Every
the Type 2s. The Type 2s were dope. The Type 2s
every
were
guy
my
I've met
favorite
who's
uniform.
utilities were like, I miss utilities. Like, I
so
kind of get it because I was Sea Cadets and we wore those, and I wore the Johnny Cashes, and the Johnny Cashes did look nice.
Johnny Cashes are different than the
Yeah.
utilities.
Yeah,
So that transition, right? So the Johnny Cashes were comfortable. You could
they were,
wear
and they
them,
looked sharp.
right? Whereas the utilities themselves, they were a different, more of a mixture of you had to always be squared away,
The
right?
stupid
So
creases down the sides, and
right.
oh my
So
god, the
for
I
footy in the
mean,
back.
aviation and being a
it
mechanic,
was
it didn't work out. You either wore your
yeah,
coveralls for all the time, and then your working uniform that was always supposed to be inspection ready was your utilities,
Right.
right?
They were like the
And
NSUs
then
almost.
yeah,
yeah,
but
you never
I
wore
always
NSUs. You
kept
never wore whites.
a good nice pair of boots and good nice pair of utilities on standby, even as an AZ, because I was always the one that was like, Elder, go do this. Elder, go clean that. Elder, the ASs need you to go fix motors with them. Go, go there. You know, like I'm like, seriously.
He's making all this
So
up.
my utilities were always jacked up.
I was gonna say, I was like, how do your utilities get messed up at a desk? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's because
I'm
I'd
just
be out
kidding,
there.
man.
I mean, you could anybody that served with me knows, like, oh, elders like
Well,
out there
it's
on the
it's
deck.
because a pen can explode, and the whiteout it can get on your uniform. You got to be
I was
careful with those
allergic.
things.
I was allergic to carbon based products called paper. So yeah,
Oh man,
Hey, but
that's
Nick,
great.
now talk to me about. So you've been in for how many years now?
I was in 11 years.
No, no, no. How long have you been out?
Oh, out. Listen, it was actually 2 years this past July.
2 years, right? For someone who's thinking about getting out, right? And whether it's at the beginning of their career or towards the end, if you could go back to talk to yourself, at what time would you choose to have this conversation? And what advice would you give yourself in order to have a smooth transition and reintegration into the civilian life?
I would say time wise, at minimum a year before you're out. Ideally 2 years, just because for me, I thought like, okay, that was about where I started thinking about it, but I didn't really like, okay, start to think about it until like about a year out. It was when I got done with all the VA appointments and all this other stuff that I had about a year until I get my results for my med board that I really started to think about it. So a year gives you plenty of time. You can, where am I going to live? What am I going to do for work? Things like that. But 2 years, I feel like is ideal because you can really deep dive into what you want to do. You can start calling up companies or people or reaching out to people, asking about jobs, asking about this, and it gives you time. Let's just say I don't know, for example, like for me, I want to be into the motorsports industry. What do I need to learn about? That's what I want to do when I get out, right? I got 2 years. Okay. Well, I got a year to take my weekends and spare time. Maybe I can go find a mechanic shop. Maybe I can go find a local race team, get with them, get some experience. Then when I'm out, hey, I did this in the Navy. It was jet engineering, but also for the last year and some change, I've been working with these guys. Now, not only do I have references, I've got experience and stuff that I can't get in the military. That helps a lot, but it also helps you research
If
like
you
me
really
now,
want to do that.
if you really want to do that, or like maybe like I've said to myself, you don't have to do what you did in the military when you got out just because that's what you have experience in,
yes,
or just because just because you're doing what you did when you were in doesn't mean your time was worth it or wasn't worth it. That's not the determining factor. I've had to learn that myself the hard way, and I'm saying it to you guys, but I'm also saying it to tell myself, like, your time still mattered, and it wasn't a waste of time just because you're not doing what you did while you were in. It's about doing what you're either not even necessarily passionate about, just doing what you enjoy. You don't have to, I don't think I don't different. You don't have to be passionate about your career. You just have to be enjoy it.
So I'm gonna add something to that perspective, especially since you're talking to yourself, right? Just remember that just because you're not doing the same thing does not mean that the soft skills, the leadership, the organization,
Right.
the maturity level, the exposure, the resilience, the customer service, all those soft skills that we don't know how to grade does not
Yeah.
mean that you're not able to bring them with you, because you will, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
you're gonna be able to have a deeper and better conversation with anyone. You're not afraid of talking to leadership, whether it's up and down the chain of command. You still have that form of respect, but you are able to have some of the tougher conversations, because in the civilian life, it's a different dynamic if
Oh
you
yeah,
give yourself
100%.
that opportunity.
And like I had, and one of the things that like helped me, like everyone's in the military, there's like a whole level of bullshit you deal with. It's just it's bullshit. Whatever it is, whether it's uniform inspection, standing in formation, staying late for no reason because someone wanted a room clean and now you're waiting 2 hours for them to look at it or whatever. Like, oh, we got a Zittel inspection tomorrow. Like, you gotta stay here till 8 o'clock, but you gotta wait till 10 for someone to come inspect it because they're whatever. That you get out and then someone's complaining about working 20 minutes late. You're like, I'm only working 20 minutes late. Who gives a shit?
Right.
Or when you're working and then your boss is like, what are you doing, man? It's time to go. Let's go home. You're like, oh, I can go home. They're like, yeah. Why are you still here? Go home. Like, it's a lot of that stuff transfers in that sense. Like, I had a hard time looking at that myself. I just kept looking at it as like the actual job description, what I'm doing. Like, I had such a like a narrow window of view of what meant I was using my military experience. So
Well,
yeah,
Nick, with that, we're gonna thank you for coming onto the podcast. We would like for you to share with the audience, how can they connect with you?
yeah. So first of all, thank you guys for having me. This has been awesome. Like, this has been therapeutic outside, just being able to talk to people who get it, like who understand it, and it's just been fun being able to bullshit with some other Navy guys about sea stories and whatever. Like, I've had a great time, and I appreciate you guys having me on here. And I don't do the whole LinkedIn thing much. I'm going to get my LinkedIn up to date. I know I'm behind the power curve on that, but I do stream on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming for VFW combat tested gaming starting here in the next week or so. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/sadoilboy. I'm also on Instagram at, oh, I have to look at my own Instagram name. This is not good. I'm so sorry. It's Sad Oil Boy 34 on Instagram. You can hit me with a whisper on Twitch or on Instagram, as well as I'm in the Discord for Combat Tested Gaming and Krieger Gaming as well. For I'm in there, and I'm under Sad Oil Boy as well on those on Discord. So if you have questions about getting out, med boards, anything, or if you just need somebody to talk to about anything, hit me up. I'm always down. That's one of my favorite things to do on stream is veterans come in there. I'll bullshit with you. I like playing video games. Come play a video game with me. Whatever it is, I'm here.
Yeah.
Beautifully, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah. I I wanted to sorry. I want to do a quick shout out to Jordan over at Krieger
Yeah.
Games. Because Jordan is a badass. And I know is he has taken on a lot for other people. He's all about helping out other people, and he's also going to school full time, and
Yeah.
that's not easy. That's not easy to do what he's doing.
He's
So
killing it.
he's killing it. He's making a difference in our community. And Nick, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your aspect of your transition. Before we kind of officially went into the episode, we're going to be showing a lot of awesomeness. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please do go into the ratings on your favorite podcast platforms and give Mil2Vet a rating. We are also selling our new hats. You guys will be able to find them. Let us know. We'll send you a hat and we will have our store set up by the time this comes out. All right. So I want you to remember this. It's your transition. So take charge of it. Mil2Vet out.
Peace.
Deuces. All right, man.